The National Guard isn't being sent to Dallas where that sniper was.
Because the Dallas Police Department and the governor of Texas, well, you walked right into that one, have responded to every call for assistance and help. That is it's such a, oh, what a dumb question. The illegal aliens who are here, you know it and I know it.
So that's not exactly a no, Stephen. Can you just unequivocally state that the immigration policy... I said it's a dumb question. Okay.
Well,
I appreciate that, but
it's a dumb question.
Why on earth does CNN keep letting Stephen Miller come on their show? They don't do it often. They haven't done it that many times this year. But when they do, I do not understand who makes that decision, because every time CNN gets destroyed. And this time is no different at all. It's Sean Daniel here, filming from Stockholm, Sweden. If you're in Sweden, let me know down in the comments. And if you love seeing this confused look on the CNN host's face, make sure you hit that like button. Now let's go.
You make the claim of terrorist assaults and violence attack over 100 nights, and yet the judge overseeing this case says that that's untethered from reality. And local officials on the ground say that Trump's assertion of what's happening in Portland, that it's war-ravaged and burning to the ground, is far from true. I looked at the police data, and police have made something like 70 total arrests since June, and there are no reports of buildings being burned to the ground. The White House cited a guillotine being rolled out as like a public display of rebellion, but there isn't actually a threat that these demonstrators are going to overthrow the government. Are you concerned that that response weakens your legal argument?
No, they are actually, as we speak, trying to overthrow the core law enforcement function of the federal government. Boris, this is, I think, where we're talking past each other. When ICE officers have to street battle against Antifa, hand-to-hand combat every night to come and go from their building, when they try to exit in a vehicle, when they are swarmed and surrounded and they try to tip the vehicle over, when people bring weapons to an ICE facility to try to engage in direct violent assault against ICE officers, what is the purpose? It is to prevent immigration and customs enforcement from carrying out the mission the American people elected them to do. Their objective is to make it impossible for ICE to carry out ICE enforcement. When in our history have we tolerated unlawful riotous assemblies night after night around FBI buildings or ATF buildings or DEA buildings? This is the textbook definition of domestic terrorism, using the actual and imminent threat of violence to keep federal officials from doing their jobs. And unless we send in troops and resources, then we will continue to bleed federal law enforcement resources in these street battles. It's absurd, it's unconstitutional, and must be put down.
You cited Title 10 a moment ago, and under that statute, you need either a foreign invasion, a domestic rebellion, or a disturbance that inhibits the ability for law enforcement to carry out federal law. But ICE is still conducting operations. Like the facility hasn't been overrun. It seems like local officials are fairly in control of the operation if ICE is still able to execute its mission, is it not?
Do you have any idea how much of ICE's workforce and resources have had to be reprioritized? How much of the Joint Terrorism Task Force's resources have had to be reprioritized to fight these domestic terrorists? Do you have any idea how many resources are spent
you keep
trying
calling
to
them
hunt
terrorists,
down and track
but isn't that
every...
hyperbolic to call them terrorists?
What is... If anything, I'm understating the severity of the situation. What issue was more central in 2024 than turning back the border invasion? And since the day we came in, ICE officers have been subjected to a nonstop campaign of physical violence and harassment every single day. And outside the Portland field office in particular, every night, they come, they assemble, they fight, they try to impede movement, they physically attack. For what purpose? Because we had an election, Boris, we had one. What's the purpose? To use actual physical violence to change the result of the election, to say you cannot turn back the border invasion. Do you have any idea how many resources we have had to redesignate to deal with these street terrorists?
You explain that. Let me ask the question. Let me ask the question.
Poor Boris on CNN. Look at his face. He is so confused and frustrated because he's never had to go up against a master like Stephen Miller. He almost looks as confused as maybe some of you when you're looking at your Medicare options for 2026 because it's hard to know if you're on the best plan for you. Especially with the Medicare open enrollment period coming up quickly, you only have from October 15th to December 7th to pick your 2026 plan. And that's why I've partnered with Chapter, because they're the only advisors that evaluate every plan nationwide for you for free. All you have to do is give them a free call and they'll evaluate which plan you're on and if there's a better one out there. If you're on the best one already, they'll tell you that. But if not, they'll advise you on a switch, which on average helps them save people $1,100 a year. You can call them at 786-619-1152 or visit the link down in the description. And that way you won't be looking as confused as Boris over here when he looks at his Medicare options.
To deal with these street terrorists,
you explain that. Let me ask the question. Let me ask the question. You make the case that these are terrorists, but in what we've seen thus far, the actual incidents of people inciting violence and not responding to law enforcement attempting to disperse them are not an open rebellion. I mean, again, you make this characterization as though they're terrorists, and I do wonder if it is potentially a problem in the future for Republicans. If a Democratic president someday calls the National Guard to a red state over what they see as open rebellion, but is what amounts to a demonstration that gets rowdy. I mean, is that not a fear of yours?
They're posting pictures of their kids because it's a demonstration, and they have a sniper on top of a building firing a high-caliber rifle at a nice facility because it's a demonstration, and they are engaging in vehicle ramming.
But the National Guard isn't being sent to Texas.
Because it's a
the National
demonstration.
Guard isn't being sent to Dallas, where that sniper was.
Because the Dallas Police Department and the governor of Texas, well, you walked right into that one, have responded to every call for assistance and help. They gave a stand-down order in Chicago, and they gave a stand-down order in Portland. Do you realize that there's 11,000 federal law enforcement officers in Oregon? That's larger than the size of the FBI. Local and state police are resourced to deal with this kind of riotous assembly, but they have refused. They've been given a stand-down order. So
they've arrested
we need
some
to use
70
National
people
Guard
since
and federal
June.
troops
They've been
to
arresting
fill in
folks
that
on the
breach.
ground. They've been arresting folks on the ground. They refute what you're saying outright.
We literally have the 911 audio of the stand-down order in Chicago, and we have documented inside of DHS every single unresponded to 911 call over the recent weeks and months. Let me present you with a counterfactual. And I know you're doing your best to try to be even-handed here, but think about this for a second. Joe Biden let 15, 20 million illegal aliens into the country. Pick your number. It doesn't matter for the purpose of this. What do you think would have happened if anti-migration demonstrators had assembled outside of every Border Patrol and ICE facility for year after year, physically attacking every ICE officer and border agent who is releasing illegal aliens, physically attacking the immigration lawyers representing illegal aliens, physically attacking the personnel at DHS, setting migrants free by the millions into our country? What do you think would have happened? You think that the response would have been measured? You think it would have been light? They would have had the military in every single facility protecting these federal officers. We shouldn't have to take all of the FBI, DEA, and ATF agents out of their desks, off their jobs, not prosecuting and pursuing cases of urgent national security because the Portland police won't respond, the Chicago police won't respond. The numbers that we need can only come from the National Guard. ICE officers should not have to live in constant fear of death. You say that I'm not using the right term. What would you describe? An organized campaign of violence, fear, intimidation, and doxing, including attacks by sniper, attacks by vehicle ramming. What would you call that, whose sole aim and objective is to disable the functions of an entire federal law enforcement agency, if not domestic terrorism? What other term would apply?
Do you have evidence?
Yo, did you see how long he was just sitting there waiting? Because he couldn't say anything. Watch. We're going to skim through. Look at his faces. The entire monologue Stephen Miller does, he's like, damn, I'm getting cooked. Especially because he called him out and said, man, you walked right into that one. And you know why we can't trust CNN's evaluation of Antifa and how peaceful they are and how they're just doing a natural protest for their right as an American? Because they said the same crap about BLM. Ooh, they're just sharing their built-up aggression throughout the years where it's been so tough for them, even though they were looting, burning businesses, robbing stores, damaging their own city, which is stupid enough because you're the taxpayer and you'd have to pay to the money's going to come out of your pocket basically to get your own city fixed. These were the same people, like Boris over here, maybe not exactly him, but CNN as a whole, that said, oh, Black Lives Matter is so nice, so sweet. Let them watch your kids at kindergarten. And now they're saying the same thing about Antifa, because you have to have factual, written down evidence. You can't make any obvious assumptions or any obvious evaluations based on their repeated behavior outside these buildings, which are a big contrast, like what Steven said, to the conservatives who were frustrated with the ruling when the Biden administration had stuff. Did you see us surrounding Border Patrol offices and posting pictures of Border Patrol officers that were letting people flood into the country, posting pictures of their kids? No. But Antifa does. But, he won't touch that one because maybe this debate's a little bit above his pay grade. Look at him. Look at Boris. And Steven wouldn't let him talk. It's the best. If you didn't hit that like button yet, make sure you do.
What would you call that whose sole aim and objective is to disable the functions of an entire federal law enforcement agency, if not domestic terrorism? What other term would apply?
Do you have evidence that this campaign is coordinated? Are you planning charges on anyone who is actually coordinating said campaign?
Yes. So since the Joint Terrorism Task Force has gotten involved, we found that there are common funding, that there is common financing, that there are meeting points, that is carefully orchestrated,
actual
that is carefully
terrorism.
Integrated. Yes.
And you are going to charge someone with terrorism.
Well, so I would like to.
I bet you would like to, but that doesn't mean you're going to, are you?
No. What I'm saying to you is the Congress has statutes on seditious conspiracy, on insurrection, on impeding federal law enforcement. The domestic terrorism statute in Congress obviously needs to be strengthened for domestic terrorism in Congress. We have foreign terrorism charges. We have an entire patchwork of federal laws. To the extent that there are charges that apply, we will charge them in every single case. You have impeding law enforcement, you have seditious conspiracy, you have a conspiracy to deprive of rights, you have assault against law enforcement officers. But all of this meets the hallmark, textbook definitions of domestic terrorism. Boris, I just want you, just for a moment, to step back and think about what we're talking about here. President Trump ran and won a campaign on turning back the border invasion.
You've said
that
several times, Stephen. We have a limited amount of time, so let me ask you. Let me ask you about the governor of Illinois.
He declared a no-go zone for ICE. How is that not insurrection?
Stephen.
No. Before he tries to jump by that, he won't acknowledge. How is that not an insurrection? How is that not a defiance of a federal government when you put a no-go zone for ICE, for federal workers? See, he's going to run right by that because he don't want to address that.
He declared a no-go zone. He declared a no-go zone for ICE. How is that not insurrection?
Stephen, we're set to hear from J.B. Pritzker in just moments. He says that you're attempting to inflame tensions and create a war zone. He also says that you are profiling, that you're targeting black and brown people, even those who turn out to be here legally. What's your response?
Well, first of all, the black people in Chicago are thrilled that we're getting the illegal aliens out of their communities who are stealing their housing, jobs, and resources. You've seen the video of the town halls during the Biden administration where black citizens who are natives of Chicago were begging to have the illegals taken out of their country. What they've done is they've created a system of law in Chicago, in Illinois, where illegal aliens have far more rights than American citizens. If an American citizen, for example, commits a crime of sexual predation against a child, they'll cooperate with the FBI. If an illegal alien commits a crime of sexual predation against a child, that illegal alien will be shielded in an ICE no-go zone. I ask you the question, what is the right term to describe a local official declaring a no-go zone for ICE? Would you tolerate it for FBI, ATF, DEA? No, you would not. But there's an effort to delegitimize the core function of the federal government of enforcing our immigration laws and our sovereignty. It is domestic terrorism, it is insurrection, and no amount of insane, hyperventilating lies from Pritzker or Johnson or any other Democratic official will change our minds on that. ICE officers should not have to live in fear and violence to do their jobs. Period.
This is something Tom Homans also said, that ICE has unfair standards when you compare it to any other federal bureau, federal organization that has to work in states and in cities in the United States. ICE has all these special rules that these cities and states are allowed to throw on ICE to try to limit their power and say, we're not going to work with you, we're going to have an illegal in our jail cell, but we're not going to hand him over to you. But if the FBI jumped in, yeah, there's maybe some argument over jurisdiction, but they're not going to be withholding somebody. FBI is going to walk in and be like, hey, this is our party, let's go, from what I understand. So why is there such a push around the country against ICE with these unfair standards that are not applied to the rest of these departments, like you have during these shootings, like the Charlie Kirk assassination? You had FBI there pretty quick to get involved, and it wasn't like Utah was like, hey, no, you can't be here, you're not working on this is only local. But yeah, with ICE, it seems to be an accepted practice, and it doesn't make any sense.
Period.
So on the substance of the question, is it the case that, as Pritzker frames it, you are profiling brown people, that this immigration crackdown is designed to go after people of color?
It's such a, oh, what a dumb question. The illegal aliens who are here are taking jobs away from blacks, they're taking jobs away from whites, they're taking jobs away from Latinos, they're taking their health benefits away, they're taking their school slots away, and of course in many cases they're committing heinous crimes. We cannot have a system of law in this country that privileges illegal aliens over American citizens, and that's what they're doing. You know it, and I know it.
So that's not exactly a no, Stephen. Can you just unequivocally state that the immigration policy... I said it's a dumb question. Okay.
Well,
I appreciate that, but
it's a dumb question.
So no, this policy is not designed to...
I thought when I said it was a dumb question, it meant no.
Well, I just want to be clear and precise. I appreciate you trying to qualify my questions, but nevertheless, I think it's a fair one that a lot of people have.
My full answer is no, that is a lie, and it's a dumb question. But you said something else baked into the premise of one of your questions. You said, well, aren't we provoking... The Illinois governor says we're provoking actions that are unlawful. Why would the mere presence... Just think about this for a second. If I put federal law enforcement and National Guard into a nice, sleepy southern town, is anyone going to riot? Is anyone going to try to shoot them in the face?
Well,
Are they going
if someone
to try to
goes
attack them in
into
the
a
street?
building
They would say,
full of people in the middle of the night covering their faces without identification, without identifying themselves, there might be concern among the community, especially if American citizens are being... Especially if American citizens are caught up in that, which some reportedly were.
We netted over 30 foreign terrorists who are members of Train
and American citizens also wound up apprehended in that.
They torture women and children. Those American citizens are now safe from Train de Aragua. You know, there was a case recently in Washington State.
But isn't that enough reason for some people to demonstrate and say that they disagree with that policy?
They took a power drill.
Isn't it enough for some people?
Well, by the way.
Hey, Stephen,
first of all, let me finish the story. TDA took a power drill and drilled a hole through a woman's hand.
Understood.
Through her hand.
We have to leave the conversation there because we're short on time, but nevertheless, we do appreciate you making the time for us and coming on CNN and sharing your point of view.
Always.
Thank you.
That, my friends, is the face of victory. I can't believe they let him back on CNN. I don't know why. Every time he goes on CNN, Stephen Miller, he cooks. Every time I see something like this, where Stephen Miller or someone else points out a positive gang wrap-up that ICE has done, or ICE has done by wrapping up and detaining really, really dangerous criminals, it is amazing to see that CNN will not even say one positive thing about that. The only thing Boris had to say just now was that, well, some U.S. American citizens got wrapped up in your guys' raid of Train de Aragua. Not, hey, wow, you guys got at least 20 known terrorists off the streets of the U.S. Wow, good job. That's a good thing. Instead, they only point out possibly something negative about it. So then you have brainwashed Americans that walk around in your gym, your workplace, your grocery store, and they will tell you about some ICE raid where ICE picked up 3 American citizens, not knowing that when they are telling you this story about how evil and racist and bad ICE is, It's the exact same story and situation where they actually picked up 20 known terrorists with Tren de Aragua. But because the news media just tries to brainwash everybody, they will pick out this small little instance, which maybe those American citizens were dangerous and affiliated with the gang. But instead, this big story that should be a national story of positive victory of cleaning up the streets of the United States, instead, you might hear it at work or at school about, oh my God, ICE picked up 2 Americans in this raid in Colorado. What a racist group. When the reality is the exact opposite. You'd think Boris and people in the media who gone to school, given so much time out of their lives, probably work a ton every week. You think that they would have at least more integrity. But thank God people like Stephen Miller do. And we get to watch the satisfaction on his face and the look of defeat on people like Boris from CNN's face. It's Sean Daniel here, and if you want to see another defeated look on a liberal host's face, check out this video where Don Lemon tries to preach about immigration to a legal Mexican immigrant, and she doesn't even need to destroy him. He just puts his own foot in his mouth, and it's so sweet to watch. See you there.